have this right?
Yeah.
Okay. I can usually talk louder than anybody else in the room anyway, so I appreciate you guys being here. And we are going to look at just a little bit, a short presentation, which those folks who know me are probably chuckling because when it comes to this kind of stuff, I'm not really short about anything with it. I think it's really important that we talk about it, but I hope that it'll end up being a good lead-in for the program that's to come afterwards from the Sheriff's Department. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. And we tend to think when we're talking about the dementias, and I refer to it as dementias in plural because dementia really doesn't tell you a whole lot of anything for someone. It just basically tells is a set of symptoms. There are roughly 183 different types. And so when the doctor says, I think they're starting to show some signs of dementia, the next question out of your mouth needs to be, what kind? Because that in and of itself is going to tell you guys what road you're going to travel with this person, or as the person, the road you're going to travel, and the safety precautions that you may need to take in between with it. I put this first slide up here because if you guys have gone to the grocery, or I always use Walmart because their parking lot is so big. If you ever come out of Walmart and you can't find your car? Have you ever been in Walmart and you can't figure out where you're going to find what it is that you want? Because there's so much stuff. Okay? The difference for the person who doesn't have a diagnosis is after that initial panic leaves you, especially in the parking lot, and you're trying to figure out which door you actually came in and which row it might be and all those, and you kind of take a breath, you can start to think, okay, let me see. When I got out of the car, I remember seeing this or this. For the person who has a diagnosis of some form of dementia, that remember piece is gone. And so the search begins. And so a lot of us do a lot of wandering around, but we're not necessarily lost. This is what we define as someone who does wander. And contrary to what folks tell me, because I do a lot of support groups with families, I actually do programs with persons who have a diagnosis. And I'll hear them say, well, they never wander. They never wander. I'm here to tell you, everybody in this room wanders at some point, okay? And so do these guys. But again, the difference is we have this tracing mechanism built into us that allows us to figure out the purpose of our wandering and look for cues and things that we can find. And for the person who wanders, who truly does, in terms of with dementia, this is why they wander. I wander because I wonder. I wonder where my old house is. I wonder where the cows are. I wonder what happened to my car. It should be in the parking lot. And so it's not really aimless. Contrary to what people think, it's very purposeful. I'm looking for something. Something happened that triggered an old memory, and I have to find it. And it could be as simple as I go to get the mail, I turn around, and I think, wow, this is really a nice neighborhood. That's a really pretty house. I need to get home, though. And I start walking. 45% of people who wander in a situation like that will be found dead if they're not found in a 24-hour period. And that's why the next presentation is so important for people to pay attention to. Even if you think you've never ever seen this in the person that you're working with, it's better to be safe than sorry. 83% of folks have wondered before. I went to get my mail and looked for another house, but the lady next door happened to come. She saw me and she happened to come out, and she said, "Honey, let's go. Let me walk back over to your porch." And bingo, I'm back on my porch. Now, did we tell you as a family member? Are you kidding? Do I want you to know that I have an issue? It's not happening. Okay? Is the neighbor going to say anything? No, because you may not even see the neighbor. So lots of these things happen for folks, and as the caregiver or caregiver to be, we don't even know that they're happening. So I always have to chuckle when folks say, "Well, Mom's never wandered." And I'm thinking, no, you just don't know Mom's ever wandered, per se, if that's what you want to call it, as we go along. 95% of folks are usually found within a mile and a half of their home. And they're found in the oddest places. It may be that as they were going, they realized, they thought about the rose garden that their house had, and they see a neighbor's house a couple blocks away, and it's a rose garden, and it looks just like their rose garden did, and so they wander into the rose garden. Because in their mind, that rose garden is home. And so that's where you'll find them. The biggest concern that we have a lot of times is when people get in their vehicle to go to the place that they're looking for. It's a little harder to find them, and again, that's why the programs, the GPS programs and those things are so important for folks to have in place, because once I get in that car, I could go anywhere. We actually had one of the families I worked with, she didn't even think her husband thought about the car anymore. And she got a call at about 3:45 one morning from someone at the Krispy Kreme, 15 and a half miles away. The guy, he'd gotten in the car and decided he couldn't sleep, he was going to take a ride. He saw the flashing "Hot Now Krispy Kreme" sign and pulled in and goes in, and of course they weren't really open, but he's knocking on the window because the "Hot Now" sign is flashing. And he goes in, and the staff person that was in there noticed that the gentleman's standing there in his pajamas and figures there must be something going on. Now, his wife we tell folks that when you have a family member that has a diagnosis of some form of dementia, you need to get a medical alert bracelet. And it simply says, I have, and you can say whatever form it is, and it gives an address. And the family member also has one, because in case they're in an accident, someone knows there's someone at home. But in this case, the gentleman started talking to him, and he looked, and he said, "Oh, can I see your bracelet?" And he saw the information on there, and he called her, and he said, "I think I have your husband." And of course, she's waking up and said, "Who is this?" And he said, "Oh, I'm the donut maker at Krispy Kreme." And he's like, "No, my husband is not at Krispy." He said, "Oh, yes, ma'am, your husband is at Krispy Kreme. Okay, and you drive this kind of car?" Yes. So the manager at the store took him home, and they also drove the other car home, and they got in place. Had he not seen that "Hot Now" sign and been such a donut lover, who knows how far down Interstate 81 he would have continued to drive and not have a clue where he was. And yes, they were nice enough. He got a dozen free donuts and brought them home with him, so he was happy. And then we know that even in our long-term care facilities, that at least one person a week is going to try to get somewhere. So we have to pay attention to these kinds of things. These are some of the different things that could change, that could cause people to want to be someplace else. I call them walkabouts. I don't like the word wander. To take a walkabout to try to figure out something else. So there may be something that changes. Earlier they were mentioning, when they were talking about diabetes, glucose levels can change. And if you already have a diagnosis of some form of dementia, that can really throw it off kilter, and that may cause an issue for that person to not be able to recognize where they are and what's going on. They may get a new medication that changes things for them. We have to be really cautious with folks who have some form of dementia and the medications, because they don't react the same way in the body and the brain as they do for folks who don't have have a diagnosis. And so we really have to pay attention to the side effects. A change in seasons. This we see a lot, particularly with some of the folks who grew up on farms, because as the season changed, the jobs changed. And so suddenly you have somebody who has to go get in the hay or has to go do these kinds of things. There is a purpose to it, and in their mind, it's real. It's now, and it needs to happen. And so that's what they begin to go look for and try to do. So we have to watch that. The change in mood and mental status is more about the change in the disease process itself. As folks move through the disease, the things that are closest, the memories closest to them start to fade away, and the memories that are further back become their reality. And so as they start to move towards that, then again, that's where you get a lot of the things when it comes to having to get home. And I hear folks say, even in facilities, and I'll hear folks coming to me and say, you have to help me get home. My children are going to be coming home from school on the bus any minute, and there's nobody there to meet them. And so you've got somebody who's trying to, and so there's a real purpose to it. I'm here to tell you it does absolutely no good if I would look at her and say, honey, you're 90 years old. Your children are grown, and their children are grown, and that it doesn't work. Her reality is her reality. And so what we do is we start talking to them about, well, tell me about your kids, trying to distract them with something else. How many kids do you have? And this kind of thing, so we can try to ease down the anxiety. And if it keeps coming up, but somebody has to, well, I've already taken care of that. I got your neighbor to come over, but I better know whether that person had a neighbor. Because if I say I got your neighbor to come, they're going to look at me and say, I don't have any neighbors. I don't have any, and it's like, okay. So we have to know those kinds of things when we're working with folks. And again, that's the same with the cognitive status. The functional status would be something along the lines of trying to find the bathroom. I can't find the bathroom. Or driving. That is probably, with all the families I work with, the hardest thing in the world for them is having to take the keys. And think about it. For those, how many of you drove yourself here today? Now what if we had collected your keys at the door and said, we're going to have a raffle to see if we give them back to you or not, okay? The panic sets in. Your independence is gone. I mean, we are such a mobile society and we depend on those things. And it truly does is a part of our independence and who we are. And so that's really stressful for folks when you do something like that. And so when those things happen, a change in somebody's routine. Okay, I'm going to venture to guess that everybody got up this morning and did exactly the same thing you did yesterday morning. Right? Exactly the same thing that you did yesterday morning. And you do that every morning. You put your clothes on exactly the same way every day, don't you?
Yes.
You brush your teeth the same way every day.
Yes.
Okay? We all have this routine built into us. And what happens to folks, as well-meaning as we may be, when we start trying to assist them, help them with their care, and we're not sure what that routine is for them, in the absence of, we do it our way. And that doesn't work. It throws me off. because this is what I know. This is built into me now, that this is how I do this. And so, you know, if I don't know what that routine is and I'm trying to help somebody, I could confuse them so much that it could make them, they start looking for, I need to get back to my place. I need to do this myself. I don't need to, and this kind of thing when you're looking at that part of it. Personal relationships, and the biggest thing that happens that will throw somebody off, particularly with dementia, is people passing away. Their friends, their family members. It's extremely stressful because they can't put it all together. And then they can't remember that they're gone. And so the family member, there's a gentleman I know, and his sister used to come faithfully about every 3 days to visit him and check on him. And she passed away. And it's really hard for him because he has it built into him, again, that routine, that schedule that says so he will actually has started, and so his wife has worked on getting a system in place for him. He started to go look for her. He'll go outside and he'll go and he'll say, I know she's supposed to be here. She's supposed to be here. It doesn't do any good for his wife to say, honey, she passed away. We went to the funeral, we did all of this. It doesn't work. So what she started doing is saying, she's going to be late. And in between times, she tries distracting him with something else to keep him from trying to do that. And then a simple change in environment, because we try to, a lot of times when we come in, and especially if family members are coming in to help us do things, suddenly everybody wants to move our stuff around. I like my stuff right where it is, okay? I don't know about you guys. You know, even on my desk, okay? I don't have the neatest desk in the world, I promise you, okay? I have stacks. But I know what's in every one of those stacks, okay? So I don't like when somebody comes in and thinks they're going to organize me, all right? Any more than I like somebody coming into my house trying to do that. And when you do things like that, it throws people off. Again, you have to think routine. And think what your routine is. And what if you walked into your bathroom, you know where your toothbrush is, you know where the cup is, you know, and you go in and it's not where it was. So you kind of go, huh? Okay, wait a minute. That's supposed to be, no, it should be put away. Okay, well you put it away from me and I have dementia, it's gone. All right, so I just figured, well, I must have brushed my teeth, the toothbrush is gone, and out the door I come. So it's those kinds of things. We talk about wandering and basically looking at 4 different categories for it. Goal-directed communication. There is such a thing as aimless. And then the wandering that you worry most about is what we consider elopement. So every time I wander, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be unsafe. It's just when you get down to the last one, you really have to worry about it. I mentioned earlier, you have folks who say, I need to go to work, I need to take care of my animals, as to why. And sometimes I may start it, and it really doesn't mean what I'm saying. There's a gentleman in one of the programs who, every day, right around 5:30, I gotta feed the cows. I gotta feed the cows. I gotta go feed the cows. He didn't really want to go feed the cows. He was hungry. Because what happens after he fed the cows is he hadn't got to eat. And so what they figured out, because they tried all this stuff, pictures of cows and this and that, talked to him about the farm and all this. And what he really wanted to say, but he couldn't find the words, is I'm hungry, isn't it time to eat? And so as soon as he says that now, what they do is say, here's a little snack to tide you over till supper's ready. And it stops. And he quits pacing and rattling doors and doing other things to try to do. So you have to kind of look at those things with this. And again, to try to tell me that what I'm telling you isn't real is not going to do any good. It's going to make me more upset. I'm going to get angry because my world is my world. My reality is my reality. So you need to step into it. When it comes to sometimes when people are moving around, this is a pet peeve of mine, and those folks do have facilities. You know that it is an issue for me. I'm bored. I don't have anything to do. So, how many of you raised children? Okay. In the absence of your children having something to do, and I had 5 of them, what did they do? Found their own things to do, and it wasn't always what you wanted, was it? Okay? It's no different if I'm bored. I may be just wandering around because I'm bored, looking for something to do. I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know what it is I'm supposed to be doing because of my dementia, and so this is what I do. The one we miss a lot is something hurts. Folks who have some form of dementia get less pain medication than any other part of the population, which is a shame. Because for some reason, it's been decided, and I don't know who made this decision, if I bring something to this disease, arthritis, those kinds of things, having dementia didn't make it go away. If I sit for a long period of time, and I don't know about you guys, but even sitting here today, if you sit very long, it's a little harder to get up, isn't it? Okay? And what do you want to do? You want to walk it off.
That's right.
So maybe when I finish, I want to get up and I want to move around because something isn't quite right with me. So we have to pay attention to those kinds of things for folks. I'm hungry. I need to go to the bathroom, but I can't find it. I don't know where it is. And it's no different than, this morning I came in, and of course I drove here from Stanton, and first thing I wanted to do was go to the bathroom, so I'm wandering everywhere, okay, to find it. It's that kind of thing. So you have to pay attention to the body language. And the big thing to remember here is body memory is stronger than my brain memory. So watch what I'm doing. Watch where I'm moving to. Watch the kinds of things that I'm trying to do, and it will help you figure out. Because if you don't, the next thing I'm going to do is go out the door. Because if I can't find it here, it's got to be somewhere. And so I'm going to keep moving until I can actually find it. Sometimes it's aimless, again, because I'm bored or frustrated. This does increase. If you have somebody who gets really angry or anxious, it will increase the risk. This is the one that people need to worry the most about. If they leave the premises, whether it's their home, whether it's a facility, whatever the case may be, and nobody knows where they are. This is the one that we end up with that doesn't have a very good outcome for folks. So it's really, really important that we have, just like the gentleman who took the ride to Krispy Kreme, having the bracelet saved him, literally. And the fact that he liked donuts, but just the idea that he had that, so at any given point in time, somebody would have been able to figure out what was going on with him. You may have folks who'll go to the door, but it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to leave. What you start with, again, you have to look at is my body language. Am I anxious? Is there something else going on with me when I'm doing this? Or I have a need to just get somewhere. If I've asked you about and said, I need something from the store, you need to pay attention, because in all likelihood, if you're not there soon enough to help me go get it, I will go get it myself. The only problem is I may not make it to the store. So you start by looking at what's going on with folks, and we need to be honest about it. And that's why it's so important, and I appreciate you guys being here and the fact that people are trying to get more and more education about this particular disease, because we have to talk about it. If you have a family member who's still at home and stuff, there are safeguards that can be put in place, but you have to let other people know. The neighbors need to know, Mom, my sister, my brother, whatever, have some form of dementia. So I just need you to kind of pay attention, and if you see them, go get the mail, and then they kind of start walking the other way, would you intervene and give me a call? Because these are the kinds of things that we need to know about, folks, so that we can start to help them with the different systems that we have that we can put in place for folks. Ask yourself, did they get lost because it was a new environment, because they were looking for something? And again, it also could signal to you that there's a decline. We usually see this behavior about mid-stage for folks. Early on, we don't see a whole lot of it, but about mid-stage for most of the dementias, we start to see this. And then looking at these other questions. What you can do, aside from what they're going to do, what a sergeant will talk to you about, is make sure that for your doors, what a lot of my folks now have, Lowe's, Home Depot, you get the little alarms that you can stick up on the top of the door, so when the door opens at 3 o'clock in the morning, and because I can promise you, the little locks that are right there, they don't amount to anything, okay? I can get out those. Hide your keys. She did from that point on, but she never thought he was going to drive. And, making sure that you're seeing folks, coming and going. And that'll happen too. You come to visit, and I walk outside to the car with you, and then you leave, and I turn around and say, So if you're visiting a family member and you know they have a diagnosis, either don't have them walk to the car with you, or if they do, then say, well, let me walk back with you. Because they may not make it back into the house. And so we need to make sure that those kinds of things are happening. Safety first, again, the alert bracelets, cameras, GPS we're going to talk about, door alarms. Always have an emergency plan. All right, you need to have a plan, guys. You need to know who you got to call, when you're going to call them, what you're going to do, who you're going to look for, how you're going to look for them. This is what we talk about. Stay calm. Make sure you have your neighbors' numbers or know what, so you can enlist other people to help you. If you have another family member, which I had one of my folks who was taking care of both parents, and so she was afraid to go out of the house to look for one because she was worried about what was going to happen to the other. So you may need somebody else to be able to come over and help do, and who you need to call to get assistance. So this is just a picture, guys, and we're going to wrap up. Let me just tell you, if the doctor says, here, I'll give you a pill, and it'll stop them from wandering, no disrespect intended, but it's not going to happen. All the pills in the world are not going to keep me from getting where I need to get to when I need to get there. What it'll do is raise my fall risk on my journey to that place. So, that having been said, guys, on behalf of those who have a diagnosis and those yet to come, thank you very much.